I wanted to talk about this giant music project I've taken up, and this isn't something I'm going to finish by next year. In fact, this kind of sets me up for the next few years at least for music that can be released. But to really understand what I mean by that, let's take a trip back. The idea for the album I released in 2017 technically started in something like 2011, maybe 2010. So My Dark Story was actually a completely different thing back then. It was still supposed to be about my life and the things that I've gone through, but I had a whole different way of wanting to tell that story back then. It was actually going to be an electronic / industrial album back in the day, but the album ended up getting put off, and I kind of abandoned it. A lot of it was a self-esteem related thing, but as time went on and I started experimenting with other songs and other styles, I started writing all these songs, and throughout the years, every single song I wrote was about something that happened in my life, and I never repeated a song about the same event. Maybe the theme was the same. It was the same type of struggle, but at a different point in my life. And as the years went on, I continued to put these songs in a folder and kind of forget about them, even though the ideas in there were pretty good. And come 2015, when my best friend passed away, I kind of said that I needed to make My Dark Story real, because I had spoken with him about that album and the ideas and concepts I had so many times, and he kept trying to convince me to do it, but I just never did. So after he passed away, I said, I think I owe it to him to actually do this now. And so I did it, and it admittedly didn't turn out too great. I didn't really understand mixing or mastering. I didn't understand the difference between lead and rhythm guitar at the time, but I was really inspired to do it, and I did it. And I'm proud that I did. But I decided a few years ago that that album really needs to get redone. But I started to realize that it was called My Dark Story. It was supposed to be the story of my life. But I was only talking about a very specific type of thing. A lot of it was wrapped around relationships and friendships and how I've struggled with those things quite a bit over the years. Partly my own fault, but also I was just in with the wrong people constantly. And so it didn't really feel right to call it My Dark Story. And I thought, well, if it's going to be called My Dark Story, maybe, I should add some of the cut songs in there. And looking through all my old songs, stuff that I abandoned, demos, songs that I called finished but never released, I realized there is this chronological order of my life throughout every single song I have ever created. And so I decided to do the very tedious task of going through every one of my songs, kind of categorizing which event in my life they're based on, creating a chronological order of everything, and then kind of sorting those into groups of these would fit well on an album together, as in terms of like a chapter or a few chapters of my life. And now I have this big long list of songs that need to be recreated and finished and actually released. And so to do this, My Dark Story is no longer an album, basically a super a compilation of sorts. But I'm not going to be releasing these songs in one big chunk, because that would be absolutely ridiculous. So I'm splitting these songs up into their own singular albums that have kind of more structure to the album itself, but also the songs. I want the songs to be recreated as they were and then evolved, built upon, and developed into something a lot more what I was envisioning for them. I forgot about a lot of these songs for years, and then after listening to them, it's like the memories of me working on those songs, coming up with the ideas, start to flood back, and I start to remember these things that I wanted to do with the song that I didn't know how to do, and now I do. So these songs are going through quite a facelift, as well as a sonic lift, and I have a lot of work to do. But the albums that were on, or sorry, the songs that were on the album My Dark Story are being recreated, but they're not being released together as they originally were. So these songs are being kind of taken as a concept for an idea, and they are being warped and twisted and changed to the point where they are still a bit recognizable. There are still some note progressions and chord progressions that were in the originals that will be in the new versions, which will kind of give that familiarity, mostly for myself. If they were completely changed, I don't think anyone would care, because they didn't really like the original album to begin with, nor did I, honestly. But they are going to be released in albums that kind of fit that part of my life. So I don't want to tease too much or kind of spoil any surprises, but the first album is going to be basically about the beginning of my life. And I've talked to some friends about certain things that happened throughout the beginning of my life. I was a foster kid. I went through the foster system for quite a while, and things were just out of my hands. I had no control over anything that was happening to me. But for years, I thought it was my fault that I went into these situations, that I was in foster care, that I ended up homeless a few times and whatnot. But I learned somewhat recently that's not the case, that there was somebody else at fault for this who made me believe that I was at fault. And this is very personal and very deep, but this is kind of what the first album is based on. And the first album, suitingly, is called Control. And so this one's going to have a few songs from My Dark Story, but there's also going to be some new songs. In fact, a lot of new songs that I wrote not only this year, but also songs that I wrote in 2018 when the next really big change in my life happened. And those songs are about, you know, different parts of life. It's a lot to talk about, but the lineup right now is 12 to 13 songs. I haven't decided exactly how many of these songs I want to be on this album, but it's somewhere between 12 and 13, possibly 14 songs for Control. And Control is going to be a very interesting sounding album, because it's going to be a mixture of the style that I've kind of been doing for a while, but then there are also some songs in there that are very, very different. They're specific songs about very big, impactful parts of my life where a certain band was there and helped me get through that part of my life, and I wanted to kind of poetically reference that fact with the sound of the song. I don't know if I'm oversharing at this point, but that said, I'm working on a new album right now. There's a lot of songs that I'm going to be releasing and compiling over the years, and I'm probably still going to discover things that I forgot about and create new ideas that I've never done before. But that is that. Keep your ears open and your eyes open. I'm going to go listen to some music and have some coffee, and I will see you guys around. Hopefully my hair didn't look so stupid in this video.